Welcome to the True Rotarian Podcast. This podcast is specially designed for all the true Rotarians by a true Rotarian. Hello friends, welcome once again to True Rotarian Podcast, where we bring in stories connected to Rotary and connected to joy of giving back to the society. Today we are going to talk about Rotary Foundation, our contribution to Rotary Foundation and the various areas where we can all contribute individually or in a group or as a club. We are very fortunate to have a very distinguished, honored and a very senior Rotarian with us, a very dear friend, Rotarian AKS Dr. Subramanian. Lovingly he is called Dr. Subra. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Welcome to True Rotarian Podcast.
Delighted to be here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So a lot of people ask us about the Rotary Foundation and things like that, what kind of a contribution we have. So we are going to jump into that very, very soon. But how do you generally feel about this podcast that we are making for the benefit of Rotarians and also for the general public who want to be part of that particular elite people who enjoy in giving back to the society?
See, firstly, Hemant, let me compliment you on having thought about it and brought out this podcast in the way you've been doing it. See, both in terms of the content and the presentation, I think you've done a fabulous job.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
And I'm delighted to be a part of this. I'm really happy that you have invited me to be a part of this and talk to you about what I'm most passionate about.
Yes.
The foundation.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to sort of go deeper into various funds that are there in Rotary Foundation, like Annual Fund, Polio Fund, Endowment, Major Gifts and more. Whether you are a long-term Rotarian or just curious about this, I'm sure this conversation is going to be very, very helpful and you will get inspired and get the practical guidance from one of the most, as I mentioned, knowledgeable person who has handled foundation at a topmost level in the district. And he's a guide to not only his clubs, but also guides to youngsters like us who are new to Rotary. We have been there for the last 15, 20 years, but you've been there for a long, long time. So welcome once again. So when we talk about foundation, let's talk about, generosity and giving back to the society. And Rotary Foundation has got various heads. Like for example, Annual Fund. Should we start with our conversation regarding Annual Fund?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. As you said, the Rotary Foundation, the primary aim has been to do good in the world. And it does it through a very structured kind of a program and something which is sustained for well over a century. And to make it possible for more of us to be able to participate, they have different subheadings or subgroups or mechanisms whereby you can contribute. The annual fund, as you said, is and probably will always remain the lifeline of Rotary Foundation. This is where you and I would contribute, perhaps smaller or larger amounts. The amount is used in the near future because what you and I contribute towards the annual fund at the end of 3 years comes back to the district as a DDF or a district designated fund, and that amount is available for you to do larger projects,
right?
Particularly in the form of, say, global grants, also sustains smaller projects like the district grants. The advantage of the annual fund is people who participate in it need not necessarily look at big contributions. The smallest to the largest contributions can come into the annual fund.
Right.
When you contribute a certain amount to the foundation, you find that part of that fund goes to the global fund or the world fund, and 50% of it comes back. So approximately, if you were to send $100 to the foundation, at the end of 3 years, you're going to get back $47.5 in your DDF.
All right.
Sometimes people wonder what happens to the rest. The rest comes in terms of matching.
Okay.
For instance, when you do a project at the end of 3 years, if whatever DDF comes for your projects, it's also matched by the World Fund at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And you will eventually find that the amount or the value of your projects is way above your own club's contributions
Wow.
and the district contributions.
Right, right.
So you're basically managing to do the large, sustainable, meaningful global grants. So annual fund would remain the primarily the focus there.
Wow. That means if the district gives in, say, $100,000 in a particular Rotary year, and as I understand, 50% comes back after 3 years, right? And the balance 50% comes in the form of matching grants, which could be far higher than $50,000. Wow. Fantastic.
Because you see what happens here is that when you're doing a global grant, your club, for instance, has chosen to assign certain amount of funding to it. The district governor is able to assign some funding. You will have an international partner who would also be able to participate by providing funds of varying levels. And districts from overseas can also participate. So the district designated funds of both your parent district and the overseas district will both be matched by the World Fund. So there is a significant opportunity to enhance or multiply your contributions.
Wow.
And create projects which are of much higher value.
This is fantastic.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. Then the second one we have is the Polio Plus Fund. Can you elaborate on that for us, sir?
Yeah. See, to understand the Polio Plus and the value of the Polio Plus, we need to go back a little into the history of polio eradication. You and I know that, the conceptualization, immunization on a broad scale, and the potential thought that we could eradicate polio is rightfully from Rotary.
Right.
When we thought about immunizing children across the world and eradicating polio, in the beginning, even the World Health Organization wasn't adequately convinced that it was possible. But having started the program, if you look at the impact we have made, see, 1988, when the Global Polio Eradication Initiative was started, there were over 350,000 children every year who were paralyzed from polio. And that spread across about 125 countries. We had gone down to as little as only 6 cases just a few years ago, and only in some districts of 2 countries, namely Pakistan and Afghanistan. So if you look at the magnitude of the achievement, we have probably prevented over 19 million people from becoming paralyzed.
Wow.
And saved immense number of lives. And if you look at how much the healthcare budget should have been impacted by 19 million people who were not self-dependent, it would run into trillions.
I know.
So that being the background, and knowing that polio, if there is polio anywhere in the world, it can come back. And once it starts to spread, the virus has spread very, very rapidly. I mean, we all have recently experienced COVID. So the only way to prevent polio happening is to completely eradicate it. So till there is a last case in any part of the world, the polio program has to go on, if anything, with a much stronger kind of will.
Absolutely.
And the advantage with the Polio Plus contributions is, you and I can make a contribution of even $5 or $10, small amounts. But if you look at the strength of 1.2 million Rotarians making small contributions to polio,
It will amount to a lot of money.
immense value to it.
Yes.
Secondly, the advantage of our partnerships. Our partnership with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. When we budget on an average polio spending currently, the Rotary contributes close to about $50 million a year towards polio. And the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation matches that on a 1:2.
Oh my.
So 50 million
Becomes 150.
150 million.
Fabulous.
So Heyman's $100 becomes 300. Subramanian's $100 becomes 300. So that is the beauty of it. And to encourage people to sort of, keep a focus on it and also to contribute smaller but, recurring amounts.
Right.
We have this Polio Plus Society.
Yes.
See, in a Polio Plus Society, all that we ask from members is $100 a year, which is just about 8,500 rupees,
Which is
approximately. And that too, once a year, till we eradicate polio.
Right.
So, a very achievable target with almost every Rotarian, so that we are able to make sure that our neighbors, Pakistan and Afghanistan, see off the last case of polio. So we can genuinely start looking at a world which is free of polio.
Which is free of
So
polio.
that is the value of the Polio Fund.
I'm sure Rotarians in that part of the world also must be sort of trying pretty hard to sort of convince people to get the vaccination done. Because I believe a lot of people earlier were of the opinion that this polio vaccination or polio drops are not good for them. But that particular myth is going away slowly, am I right?
See, it has been, in several parts of the world, people do come up with these counterparts. And we know, we have struggled in India at one time where some religious groups were very opposed to the vaccination.
And even for COVID, we had a lot of, some part of the society were a little apprehensive about
There is a sizable number of people, I understand, in the United States
Yes.
who had significant objections to these immunizations.
Right.
And see, the polio, the other thing that polio has, brought to me as a Rotarian is, when you look at myths like this, to have overcome that in a country like ours, where there are sizable pockets of the worst combinations of illiteracy, overcrowding, malnutrition, poor water, sanitation, hygiene,
True.
and yet we've been polio free for 14 years.
14 years, yes. It's amazing.
And we became polio free and we received a lot of resources, financial and otherwise, from countries which haven't seen polio in years.
Right.
So now I think, it's our way to pay forward.
True.
I think every Indian who's proud of being in a country which is polio free, I would urge that he should see it as a responsibility to contribute to make Pakistan and Afghanistan or the entire world polio free.
Realize that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Sir, can you now tell us about Endowment Fund
Right.
and its long-term impact that we have within the club and otherwise?
You see, the whole concept of the endowment is basically that the principal remains invested and the returns are available for functioning of Rotary for periods way beyond what you and I would even guess.
Wow.
So basically, you find that whatever is invested comes back in the form of returns on the endowments. To give you a small example, if you or I were to create an endowment, let's say in the memory of somebody dear to us, the amount that we contribute, which is usually $25,000 or above, stays invested with the foundation. And whatever the returns on the money lying invested are, part of that goes to the World Fund and part of it would come back to the district as a part of the DDA.
As part of the DDF.
As a part of the DDA. So the district could then assign that amount because it adds to the value of your DDF. So you can again enhance the annual fund.
Right.
You would have often heard about 2.025 billion by 2025.
Right.
This thought came up because it gives you something there for perpetuity. If you were to look at investing that kind of money, and if you look at the returns, there will be several millions available every year year on year without any additional investment going in.
True.
So that will form a good chunk which will be added to the ongoing contributions coming every year. And if you see the way things are going in the current situation, you'll be pleasantly surprised that this year, ended 30th June, India has already contributed over $36 million.
Wow.
Our zone 4, we lead with close to $15 million
Wow.
in 1 year. And we remain the second largest contributors to the foundation after the United States.
It is fabulous, absolutely fabulous.
Yeah. So endowments are something which are for perpetuity, and you may create in memory of somebody, so that it's not only the financial value of the endowment. There is a huge amount of memory associated.
Right.
There is a huge amount and an emotional connect, that bond of preserving a memory of somebody near to you, dear to you, and at the same time assigned to doing good in the world for perpetuity.
Wow. This is fabulous. So should we talk about major gifts and AKS?
When we talk about major gifts and AKS, there are several thoughts that go on in people's minds. Major gifts, when we talk about, we need to differentiate a major gift from a major donor. A major donor is anybody who has cumulatively over a period of time contributed $10,000 or more.
Right.
Whereas a major gift is a gift where a single time contribution of over 10,000 is being made. You could make a major gift of $10,000 today and become a major donor if you hadn't contributed earlier. So the difference is between one is a cumulative giving versus a one-time giving. So that is what a major gift is. So any gift that you give more than $10,000 at a time is a major gift. It can be given in any form. You might give it as what we call a directed gift, which basically would mean that it is assigned to a cause in the area of your interest, both geographical and in terms of the area of focus, and can add on value with other contributions coming in. The advantage of directed gifts is that if Hemant decides to do a program on basic education and literacy in the outskirts of Gurgaon today, the three things he achieves are: the project happens where he thinks it is most needed. He is able to see the project being developed within the year when he has contributed the money. Thirdly, the project does not require a contributing international partner.
Wow.
So you would have a notional overseas partner as a part of the global grant structure, but you do not need a contributing partner. So with the results, doing global grants in a given area of focus for yourself becomes easier. And you will find that more and more people are beginning to understand that $25,000 is not such a big amount when you talk about it.
True.
If you're passionate about it, there are several Rotarians who will be in a position to make that kind of contributions. So that's the primary basis on the major gifts. In fact, when you look at contributions of that kind going, some of these go into endowments, of course, where you obviously don't use that amount into the projects. But with these gifts, it's used directly into the project.
Into the projects,
Yeah.
Sir, it's just struck me. You became AKS very recently, just about 4-5 years ago. Am I right?
No, 2 years ago.
2 years ago. It's very interesting. One AKS is interviewing the other AKS and
Yes.
welcoming on a True Rotarian
Absolutely.
podcast.
That's true.
And talking about AKS.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So why did you become an AKS?
Okay. See, I will probably take both this, why and how. Why did I become an AKS? Like I said, the year I was the district governor was actually the centennial year of the Rotary Foundation.
Okay.
And we all know that Arch Klumph who was the president in 1916-17, when he conceptualized the foundation, was the person who could actually see so far into the future.
Right.
And when people were wondering what kind of foundation we need to look at, he had kept it very simple. It was about doing good in the world. Of course, the Rotary's way of doing the good in the world did not just talk about a single element. We knew that unless everybody was healthy, literate, disease-free, comfortable, living in a peaceful, sustainable environment, peace may not happen.
True.
So, working on each of these areas of focus, we know we have raised this foundation. It started with a very, very small contribution of $26.5 in 1617. Today, the foundation has already spent well over $4 billion. You're talking about 36,000 crores.
Wow.
One single foundation, 36,000 crores, with additional income coming from wherever contributions have happened
True.
in over 200 countries.
Amazing.
That is the magnitude of it. So, in terms of being able to contribute, you are able to achieve far larger things. Here I would just step back for a moment to say, when you look at people like, let's look at the Premji Foundation or the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation or the Ambani Foundation. These are individuals who have large enough funds
True.
to do huge projects, big sustaining programs, which individuals like me with a limited resource can never achieve that kind of things. But through the foundation, we can actually achieve such big things.
I agree with you.
Because it's a question of coming together
It's coming together, yes.
and doing something bigger.
Yes.
Which is probably why you realize that the value of structured philanthropy is so much superior in terms of what we can do with it than charity. So that was the purpose I came into wanting to be an AKS, in terms of primarily being, since I don't have enough to have a large wealth and a large foundation, I joined a foundation which is so reliable that for 16 years, the Charity Navigator has rated it as top notch. And the Charity Navigator looks at everything, including the percentage of the collected funds going to the final beneficiary, to the quality of reporting and the stewardship, the transparency with which the projects are done, and also the prudence, the discipline with which these projects are done.
And the cost of doing a project, which is hardly anything.
Exactly.
The administrative cost, I think, of Rotary is what?
It's the lowest.
It's the lowest in the world, right?
Anyway, compared to any other organization, we have the lowest administrative cost for doing consistently large projects with ongoing monitoring and oversight.
It's fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. Now, here I will also take a moment to look at, when people contribute to the Arts Fund Society, there were two things. One of my very close friends asked me these questions, close enough from young days. So he said, I didn't know you were rich. So I said, look, as a working professional doctor, I'm not likely to be rich. But the thought was there that one needs to give. So at any point in time, at the point when I thought, yes, this is an amount which I could dispense with, the obvious choice was to the Rotary Foundation.
Obviously.
So, I have always felt that one way to contribute to causes is not necessarily to have lots of money, but you can actually save on what you have.
Right.
See, someone like me, I have a pretty simple lifestyle. So consequently, I am able to save a lot more than otherwise. And to me, there is no better way to spend that money.
Absolutely.
than through the foundation.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So which is where I am.
So it's been wonderful the way, the couple of things I didn't know, frankly, about the kind of money which we give it for AKS can be sort of used for such a large project. This is one area which probably I didn't consider that at all. Anyway, let's come to the Paul Harris Fellow and Paul Harris Societies.
Yeah, I think, when you look at anything of large, when you look at a large canvas, the focal point would begin with Paul Harris, having been the founder of the Rotary International and having really seen the Rotary through its evolution in a big way. I think the Paul Harris, the way we have maintained his thoughts, elaborated and expanded on them to be where we are today. The Paul Harris Fellows are those people who have shown their commitment to the Rotary Foundation by contributing up to $1,000 either at one stroke or cumulatively over a period of time. So anybody who has a contribution of 1,000 US dollars or about 86,000 rupees of today's conversion will be called a Paul Harris Fellow. The value of this comes from the fact that almost all of us that we know are capable of being Paul Harris Fellows.
Absolutely.
So they carry the memory of the founder and yet support the cause of the foundation. When you look at the Paul Harris Society, this shows an additional level of commitment and shows the power of recurrent giving. Paul Harris Society are people who would contribute a $1,000 every year. So with the result, there is an ongoing contribution which will enhance the foundation, and yet at the same time, you have the satisfaction of being a recurrent contributor.
And over the years, he might even become major donor.
Absolutely. And
$10,000, Like, for example, our club is 100% Paul Harris, not only the Rotarians, but even the Rotarians. We make sure that this is one of the conditions we have in the club, that if you want to join our club, we want you to be a Paul Harris
I'm glad you do that, because that's what we have done in our club. We have been a 100% Paul Harris Fellows Club for a long time. And that, gives a certain degree of involvement as well.
True.
Apart from the contribution, it certainly enhances the involvement as well.
So then we have a last thing that we talk about is on district grants. And though we have sort of disaster management grants and things like that, why don't we talk about disaster management?
Right. See, we live in a world where disasters happen every day. There could be natural calamities, it could be floods, it could be tsunamis, it could be earthquakes.
Incidentally, we had an earthquake this morning. Did you realize that?
I didn't.
I realized it because
I read about it while, but yeah, and we all know the way the earthquakes affected Uttarakhand or Bhuj or Turkey recently, and
Nepal a few years
ago. When you mentioned Nepal and I mentioned Uttarakhand, a lot of the work on reconstruction of areas post-recovery has all been done through Rotary in a big way. Similarly, in terms of immediate evacuation and immediate supply and immediate support, the shelter box again has been something which was extremely valuable during the tsunami and beyond.
Yes.
Then we of course have problems related to man-made issues, challenges of war, aggression, migration. So all these, when there are disasters, like COVID happened, so if there is an acute need for supporting a disaster management in a given area, up to $25,000 can instantly be available to the district who are doing a particular cause.
Wow.
So the disaster management is a good area for us to work on.
Right.
When you look at some of the larger grants, when you look at it, I don't know if you're familiar with the
Scale of grant.
The scale of grant.
Yes.
Right. See, this is something which possibly is quite new. We are just at the point of the fifth programs of scale grant.
Incidentally, I had a podcast recorded with Rotarian K.S. Mehta, who had done a lot of work with the Rotary Club of Delhi Premier on scale of grant. I did a podcast with him.
No, that's very interesting because one of the things that the program of scale grant, which this is the first program of scale grant which has been awarded to an Asian district.
Yes.
We were the first. Delhi Premier was the first. And having been the RRFC, I have been involved with this grant also. What you realize is how comprehensive it is. I think K.S. Mehta and his team, they looked at multiple dimensions of a single area. Not just creating water bodies, but creating areas on soil management,
Yes.
fruit tree plantation, training and education of the farmers, enhancing the economic side of things. So it's a very, very well thought out, very comprehensive kind of a thing, looking at involving 4 particular states in this country.
Yes.
So it is the magnitude of it which is huge.
Yes.
And just to mention quickly, if you look at the other scale of grants that have been done in the world, the first 3 were done in Africa. The first one was a malaria-free Zambia. Started with a $2 million grant, and because of the success in a short period, it was enhanced to a $30 million grant and has involved adjacent countries as well. Maternal and child health in the entire Nigeria.
Absolutely.
The second one. The cervical cancer-free Egypt with the HPV vaccination was the third one. So these are projects, it's not the value in millions that we're talking about. It is the number of lives you're going to touch, the lives you're going to save, the quality of lives that you're going to impact. So I think that is the beauty of the programs of scale.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So how has the Rotary Foundation evolved over the years in terms of donor engagements?
Yeah, this is a very important and an interesting question. Rotary Foundation, in terms of involving more people, both Rotarians and non-Rotarians, has been working on, one, to ensure that what we take up, we deliver. We've always looked at the community as the basic focal point. What is the need today? We assess what the community needs are and then go on with the project. When it comes to donor engagement, you and I realize that donors can come from within the Rotary,
Or outside?
donors can come from outside the Rotary, and the participation and the needs are different. One or two important aspects in terms of the human emotions. We all like to be loved. We all like peace. We all like a pat on the back.
Absolutely.
We like recognition. We like rewards. So Rotary has created a large number of grants, awards, to recognize people who have made meaningful contributions. Secondly, when you look at the type of reporting patterns that we have, our stewardship is so strong that we are able to not only be sure ourselves that every penny that's contributed is utilized and used properly.
And
reported. So consequently, the donor also has the ability to see the reports and have the direct options of visiting the projects. And so the donor understands that his contributions are well spent and well looked after.
Yes.
That's the second thing. Third is in terms of the process of developing projects and process of obtaining donations and stewardship. Staying in touch with the donor, right from the time of discussing what we are doing, to thank him for his partnerships, and reporting to him the progress in the work that we are doing.
Builds the confidence of
Builds
it.
the confidence.
Yes.
So these are some of the things that the Rotary Foundation has been working on in terms of donor engagement. The Though I must add here, individually, each of us can do a lot more in that direction. To begin with, involve more people from outside our immediate circuits.
Yes, that was my actually next question.
Right.
How the Rotarians and non-Rotarians can
That's right.
consider donating to Rotary, and now that we've discussed so many areas
Absolutely.
where donations can be made.
True. So, it's very, very true that, those of us who have good friends know those who have got a mindset of making a change. These are people who would be more than willing to be either a part of Rotary as Rotarians, or people who may participate in the projects by other types of resources, including financial resources.
Yes.
So if they knew what we were doing, they'll be more than willing and
Willing to do that, that's right.
Yeah.
Apart from what we have discussed, is there any other fund within the Rotary Foundation that we haven't touched upon this particular thing right now?
In the Indian context, funds for doing good projects are coming from company CSRs.
Yes.
CSR is a big avenue available to Rotary in India, where companies which are mandated to spend a certain amount of their profits towards their CSR, we are recognized as a receiving body. So what we are able to do is a company is able to assign their CSR for a particular project. We become their implementing partners.
Yes.
We have experienced volunteers. We have a robust organization.
And systems.
So what we are able to do is the company visualizes something to be done. We are able to fund the project, but we are completely experienced volunteers who don't involve any additional expenditure to the company and are yet able to implement these projects and take it to completion.
It's wonderful, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I was, giving a small talk on fundraising. I did a podcast also on that, and there also I mentioned this is, as on date, little over 36,000 crores is available as CSR funds with various organizations, and whereas a very small percentage of that comes to Rotary. So I think the time has come that we Rotarians have to sort of talk about our projects to various organizations who have these funds, so that we can sort of motivate them to make Rotarians as partners in helping the society.
No, I would totally agree with that, because you see, a lot of the time, the companies are also looking for people to implement their projects.
Yes.
Because I think the company, while they are prepared or probably mandated to spend this money, they would rather have somebody who's capable of taking that charge from them in terms of implementing.
Absolutely.
And because we have the track record and our own, and if you see the way the CSR contributions are going up, about 4 years ago we started with about $2.3 million in India with CSR. This year we are well over 11 million.
Which is quite a lot as compared to 2 million.
That's right. But at the same time, what you said is very important. It is still a very minuscule proportion
Very small.
of what's available.
Yes, yes.
Instead of going looking for money to find, here is money lying there to be used.
Absolutely.
So I think, we need to be a little more proactive on that segment. And I think, we need to have good structure to try and work with people who would more than happily implement larger projects.
Wonderful. Sir, would you like to give a message to all the listeners, and who are, a lot of them are Rotarians and a lot of them are also non-Rotarians, because we are talking about a subject which is joy of giving and the various areas where we can give. Any sort of message to our audience?
Before I come to the message, can I just take a moment on the joy of giving, as you said? There is medical evidence available today, strong medical evidence available today, that your participation, either by financial contribution or actually participating in doing a social project, improves your quality of life.
Wow.
It increases certain happy hormones in the body, like the dopamine, like the endorphin, like the oxytocin.
Oh.
So it actually has been compared with almost like the joy of either creating music alone or creating music as a part of a larger team, or the oxytocin levels they talk about, the levels of happiness a mother gets while she's breastfeeding a child.
Wow.
That is the level of rise in oxytocin that
Oh,
happens.
this is fantastic.
Yeah, so there is a tremendous amount of physical benefit to the individual who is the giver. So there is enough building evidence today scientifically that while the beneficiary is happy, the giver is perhaps happier.
Wow.
Yeah. So my message to Rotarians would be that you and I are here because of our commitment to a better world. And you and I can make huge changes to the existing world. To the non-Rotarian who is watching this program and who perhaps has a similar mindset, I would invite you to join the Rotary. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, sir. And it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Pleasure.
On behalf of my audience, I'm really grateful for your time.
Thanks.
And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to this podcast. And if any of you are interested in sharing a story or being part of this particular show and share your experience about Rotary and tell us something about how to improve True Rotarian Podcast, it will be a pleasure, honor to invite you to our show. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Jai Hind.